again, everyone. I'm Charles Gross.
And I'm Leslie Hoban Blake. Welcome to Two on the Aisle. Please like and subscribe to our channel.
Tonight, we're going to talk about Jonathan Spector's new play, Birthright. Birthright is an Israeli, I think also American organization that provides free trips to Jewish Americans between the ages, I think, of 18 and 29. And I was so excited about this play because it's about a group of young people who go on a birthright mission and stay together for the next 18 years. And I went on a trip to Israel when I was in college, about the age that they were when the play begins. And I also stayed together with the group of people that I went with, although not quite as long. In addition, I saw Eureka Day on Broadway, also by Jonathan Spector, and I loved it. And as excited as I was to go and see the play, I was so disappointed with what I saw. This is a very long play, 3 acts, 1 hour each. In the first act, they've just come back from the trip. The second act is a 10-year reunion after the trip. In between reunions, they text and they email and they blog, so they know what's happening with each other. During those 2 hours, the most exciting part of the play had nothing to do with these characters. It was with one of the characters' mothers, beautifully played by Liz Larson, who was newly divorced. And for 10 minutes in the second act, you have something very special. Otherwise, there's not much of a story. The characters are bland. In fact, in the third act, one of the characters came up. He had had a life transformation. And I'm thinking, okay, which one was he?
First of all, Liz Larson was channeling Tova Felsha.
I think the best thing you can say about these characters is, aside from Liz Larson's character, none of them is a Jewish stereotype.
And I liked what Liz Larson did. It added a bit of levity to what became a rather heavy-handed play. Not that it's a heavy play, but a heavy-handed play. I didn't like Eureka Day quite as much as you did, but I think it's a far superior play because it's fast-paced, and it had a point to make, and it made its point. However, I do admire his chutzpah in doing a 3-act play. In the tradition of O'Neill and Arthur Miller and Tennessee Williams, nobody does it anymore. This is the reason why. People go, oh, God, it's very long. But I didn't find it long. I kept waiting. I was very eager to get back to it after each act, surprisingly enough. It's a monumental undertaking because it tries to encompass the last 20 years in the political scheme of what's been going on in the Middle East. And that ain't easy. And I don't know that it succeeds.
Well, it certainly doesn't succeed. And it really doesn't get political except, well, in the third act, it certainly doesn't. I'll get to that momentarily. But in the first act, it doesn't get political at all. In the second act, the only politics is, was the Obama administration more anti-Israel than J Street? And by the way, that is not at all how the playwright frames it, but that's the take that I got. Then in the third act, finally, and I should say, by the time the third act comes around, a portion of the audience has left the theater. In the third act, you finally think you're going to get some of what made Eureka Day so brilliant. And you sort of get it, but you really don't, because there is a whole discussion. This takes place after the events of October 7th. And there's a whole discussion about, the state, about where Israel is. The problem here is that the playwright puts his thumb on the scale. He brings up certain issues, but he purposely leaves out facts that would draw you to a much different conclusion. He says, oh, the early Zionists mentioned colonialization, but he doesn't mention that the early Zionists paid for any land they settled in Israel. One of the characters makes a genocide accusation, and no one rebuts it because one of the other characters says, oh, genocide, that word cost me my job and my career. And it's a very potent scene, how she lost her job and what happened at the company that she worked for. But it gets the playwright off the hook for having to rebut the charge, except that it doesn't. No one gives an argument. And believe me, there is a very strong argument that it is absolutely in no way, shape, or form a genocide. So with Eureka Day, you're given the fact and you can draw your own conclusions. Here, the playwright gives you a select amount of facts so that you'll come to his conclusion.
Really quickly, for anybody who doesn't remember, Eureka Day was about vaccinations, a very highly politicized topic at the time of the play, or just after the time of the play when we saw it. And of course, the October 7th is now and will forever be a highly politicized act of terrorism in the Middle East. But is it even-handed? Is it not even-handed? It's the idea of many people's different points of view, even though they're all Jewish. And I think part of the playwright's message here is that there is no such thing as one kind of Jew. It says, I will take this from the script, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, it says in the little headline. And a bunch of Jews sitting around in a room kvetching, if you take it from another play.
Not only wasn't there the 3rd opinion, there wasn't even the 2nd opinion. And there were more than 2 Jews in the room.
Obviously, no one writer can speak for this particular issue. No one group of Jews can speak for this particular issue. The play doesn't even begin to take it on in that sense, but it does open it up in a way that perhaps other shows do not. Obviously, nobody is running around yelling about Israel.
Is there any other show that discusses the issue? The closest thing you have is a show that takes place well before October 7th, and that was Giant, where you actually had a much better discussion.
Well, I admire Spector for taking it on himself, and I think he did a decent job with it. There's more to be said. There are more plays to be written. I hope this will open up more stage space for stuff like this to be done, where real issues of the day can be spoken about. Yeah, people talk about this in rooms and they kind of whisper behind their hands sometimes about.
But going beyond how poorly he handled the issue, it's a boring play. It's 3 hours. The characters are very bland. They're not all that distinguishable. You say, oh, different types of Jews. They're not different types of Jews. In fact, in the 3rd act, when one of the characters becomes a different kind of Jew, he becomes very Orthodox. He walks in, and it took me half the act to figure out which one is he.
Well, I understand you. I know what you're saying, but I didn't find them bland. I found them to be far greater spread than you might see in most plays. I understand that from reading something about this, that he actually did 20 interviews in order to get the 6 archetypes that he used for his play.
It certainly does not look like he interviewed a diverse crowd.
Again,
based on what I'm seeing with these characters.
I may not be as close to this issue as you are. And therefore, for me, it was enlightening. I'm not saying it solved anything. It gave me more of a perspective than I had before. And that may be or may not be what he was going for. I don't know. What would you give it in terms of his...
First, I think you had wanted to say something about the cast, so I'll let you say it. They seem to be decent enough actors, but they're not going to get a chance to prove it here. Second, there was a lot of smoking in the 2nd act, and these are millennials. 3, there's a hot tub in the backyard of the house where this takes place, so there's, some gratuitous nudity that really adds nothing to the show. I have no idea why they bothered to put it in. Maybe they felt, well, we got to give them something.
I don't know.
This plot,
all of those are interesting points. I disagree with you about the smoking part. I didn't see a lot of smoking. I saw surreptitious smoking, and I saw people smoking because they were under stress and had given up smoking earlier in their lives. That's what I saw. But as a former smoker, I'm more in tune with that than you perhaps are about how and why they're taking a cigarette here and there or a puff.
Okay, so I'm attuned to Israel and Birthright, and you are attuned to smoking.
Right?
Okay.
Now you understand our dynamic, folks. That's it. In a nutshell. So now, how many playbills would you give it?
I will give this 2 playbills. I was so excited about the play, and I was so disappointed with what I saw.
I was excited. I was not disappointed. In terms of the actors, you can go to the website for MCC, and you'll find their names. I would not just rush through a list of names right now, but I would give it at least 4. If it was a swing and a miss, at least he took the swing.
And that is our show for this evening. When you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us too.
On the aisle, brushing smoke out of our eyes. I saw smoke at Are You Now or Have You Ever Been, where everybody was like a smokestack. Everybody had a cigarette going, and there was another one coming in, and they lit the end of the. They were
And when does that show take place?
1950 something.
Okay. Yes,
47.
in the 1950s, people
Yes, right,
smoked.
right.
In the
But I was in the
21st
front row.
century, less so. Vaping,
Okay.
maybe, but not
Yes, I
smoking.
know. I know when I stopped smoking. I know exactly when it was.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.